What was your cringiest encounter with a nice guy? Met a nice guy over OKC a couple of years ago. I gave him my number after we chatted for a bit and talked about possibly meeting. When he suggested we meet at a local elementary school in the middle of the night, I noped the frick out and told him it was nice talking to him, but I didn't really want to meet anymore. He kept trying to convince me by saying he would buy me gifts. He really likes me and thinks we could hit it off. When I told him no, he blew up and called me the B word, a whore, the usual. He tells me that I now owe him $15 because he'd already bought me a present for our first date and that I needed to meet him right now to give him his money. Or I could meet with him and have a good time and forget about all of this. Blocked his number right away and didn't hear from him until the next day when he calls me from a different number. When I picked up, he acted pleasant and asked me what time we were going to meet today for our date. I told him to F off and blocked him again. Then I get a text a couple of hours later from another fricking phone number saying that if I don't meet him, he was going to take his own life. After a bit of unnecessarily dramatic conversation, I basically told him that I didn't care if he did that, he was psychotic and needed to leave me alone. I blocked him and forgot about it. Fast forward to about 6 months ago when I get a text from an unknown number. I knew exactly who it was when I read the text. I have $20 and a fun night planned for us. Want to meet sometime soon? Miss you. Blocked it, changed my number, never giving it out to a stranger again. There was a guy in high school who had a crush on me. He was never shy about it, and from day one he made me really uncomfortable. He had asked me out multiple times a day, always in front of my friends, who didn't help because they'd always egg me on to go out with him. I was the new kid in school and they'd all been friends with him since elementary. When I kept saying no, he assumed it was because I was seeing someone else, so he started telling people that I was sleeping with random guys at school. I wasn't. I had no interest in dating any of the boys I went to school with. Anytime I tried to tell him to stop doing that, he, and anyone else around for that matter, said he was just joking and needed to lighten up. It all came to a head at the homecoming dance my junior year. He was a senior, so it was his last homecoming. Apparently the day before homecoming, he told one of my friends that he'd asked me out to the dance and I'd said yes. He had not asked me, I never had any intention of going to the dance. He kept going on to my friend about how special he wanted it to be, that he spent all of his money on tickets, gas, new shoes, and a corsage. My friend was so excited for him that she went over to his house the day of homecoming and helped him get everything ready. She also told all of our friends what was going on, so everyone was under the impression I was going to the dance with him. Let me also add, no one checked with me that I was going to the dance, so this was all going on without my knowledge. He told everyone that I was going to get dropped off by my parents, so he and all of my friends waited outside for me. They waited for 3 hours. Apparently, anytime my friends told him to come inside and that I wasn't coming, he'd start tearing up and say, "Just 5 more minutes." So of course I went to show up to school on Monday and everyone was furious at me. None of my friends wanted to talk to me. I sat alone at lunch for 3 days completely confused about what was going on before some girl I'd never talked to before asked me why I'd stood him up. So I went up to the guy when he was alone, asked what the frick he had done, and he just started laughing hysterically and said, "If you agree to go out with me, I'll tell everyone it was just a misunderstanding." Never talked to the guy again. It permanently damaged my friendships with several people because they thought I was a massive piece of crap to this guy who they thought was really sweet. Holy God, what a manipulative moron. There's just so much premeditated destruction of the girl's social life on display that he deserves whatever badness life throws his way. I had to get a ride from a friend my junior year of high school. For some reason, I didn't have my car. I don't remember all the details. He stopped about a mile from my house and pulled over into the side of the road. He had told me he had had a dream where we had made out and that I was a really good kisser in it, and he decided I could either walk home from there or kiss him. Holy crap, do I have a story for this. So I'm a big dude, and at my first semester at university, I came in as a junior. And there was this guy that was just way too freaking into me, and he was super creepy about it. The dude would just sit uncomfortably close to me, like if I was sitting on a chair, he'd sit on the armrest, or if I was talking to someone, he'd place himself directly between me and the person I was talking to. It was annoying. He would always bring up discussions to make sure everyone in the room knew he was bi, and ask everyone their orientation, and every dude would answer straight and he'd awkwardly flirt with me or some other dude. After months of this, we were playing ping pong and we were getting in a stupid argument where he was just flat out wrong. It had something to do with game engines and pixel art. It was stupid. He would hate to admit he was wrong, but he decided that this was a good point to show me he was able to accept defeat in an argument. He goes, "Fred, I have Asperger's. It's really hard for me to look someone in the eye. I can only do it if I'm really mad at the person or if I really want to screw them. But don't worry, I'm not mad at you." All while staring right into my face. I just put my stuff down and walked away. I was like 19 and working my third shift at a gas station, casually sweeping the floor. The door opens and I hear that ding, so I look up and make eye contact with some guy. I can't explain what was going on in the guy's head, but it was like he thought it was some kind of slow-mo movie situation and he staggered back, gasping, and widening his eyes and staring at me. I'm not the kind of person to notice this kind of stuff in other people. I felt like I was reading a scene from Twilight in my head. I went behind the checkout counter, he grabbed his Red Bull or whatever, he kept obviously looking at me in shock and shaking his head like he was trying to psych himself up for something. Ladies, you know that feeling when you know someone wants to catch your attention and talk to you, but you're trying to keep it casual? This went on for like 20 minutes and I couldn't accomplish anything because I'm waiting for this dude to check out. Anyway, so he walks up to the checkout super dramatically, I check him out, he stares the whole time and finally says, "I never expected to see such a beautiful woman at a gas station. This is fate, you shouldn't be working here. I just can't help myself, I have to ask you to go out with me." I said, "Sorry, I have a boyfriend." He seriously looked enraged. He clenched his fists and gave me this overly dramatic, scary look, grabbed his stuff and stormed out the door. He moved his car so the bright headlights were facing the front of the store and sat there until the next customer came, probably an hour later. Honestly, I wasn't too scared, it was just really like, what? I just wanted to finish my list of duties at this crappy gas station and live my life. But some Joe concocted a bizarre dream scenario in his head and somehow that was my fault. Gotta love the sheer stupidity of thinking both that you're way too pretty to be there, but then being shocked and enraged that you could possibly have a boyfriend. What a nutcase. A guy sat down next to me at a coffee shop and asked why I didn't have a boyfriend. That was his opening line, so I told him I did, and he immediately looked appalled, demanding to know where he was, and I was like, "Bro, do I need to wear a sign or something?" Nice guy said he was doing me a favor by trying to stick his hands down my pants because he was the only one that would give me experience, being the size that I was. Joke's on him, I lost 65 pounds after that and turned my life around completely. Had a very difficult, traumatic end to a long-term live-in engagement. He went to jail, I decided to go to Europe to backpack for the summer. Best friend, male, agreed to come along and was very aware that this was a post-breakup getaway, to clear my head and have fun. He flew out ahead of me to visit family. I arrived at the airport to see him waiting for me in Europe on bended knee, ring, flowers and all. I was furious and that friendship was destroyed. Vacation was equal parts horrendously awkward and tense and amazing, but ended with him drunkenly ranting about it all in a hostel one night, ultimately becoming inappropriate and then physically aggressive toward me, and a group of strange hostel bunkies helping to quietly pack my stuff while he was finally passed out and get me to the airport and home immediately. I haven't seen him since, about 8 years now. I guess in his mind it was the perfect cliché movie moment to begin our lives together. He had 10 years to speak up, but felt that the very first moment I step on European soil to begin my newfound freedom and let go of it all was the absolute best moment to inform me that he had lied essentially about our platonic friendship for a decade and wanted an immediate transition to being lifelong partners, right then and there. My stomach is churning even now thinking about it, and of course people gathered around and cheered. I believe that's what it was that infuriated me the most. It's humiliating to be put on the spot like that in front of so many strangers, expecting and hoping to witness a fairy tale moment. I had to loudly say something like, "Come on, stand up, you're joking right, brother friend. Quit playing around, let's go celebrate my 7-year-long relationship ending last week, and go party my freedom now. Ha 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 ha." Of course, I'm the bad girl in that situation, and he's just cliché hopelessly in love best friend, good guy, finishing last as always. Someone even booed me. Met a guy at a gathering at a mutual friend's place and ended up getting stuck talking to him all night. Night ends and I don't give it another thought. Couple of weeks later, he calls my house. I didn't give him my last name or my phone number. Since he now has my number, he also knows my address and starts showing up at my house at weird times, sometimes with his equally creepy sister. Fast forward a few years and I haven't lived at home for at least a year. He shows up, Dad answers the door and just tells him I'm not in, not that I don't live there or anything. Later that same night, Dad lets the dog out for a pee before bed. Dog disappears into the backyard, chasing something he really wants to catch. Thinks it's a skunk or something until he hears the gate on the neighbor's fence open and close quickly. Dog has chased a person out of the backyard. My old bedroom window faced our backyard. We don't know for sure, but I think my dog chased that frickin' creep out of our yard. Screw you, Adam. I don't think we have a catch-all name for these so-called nice guys of the world in the same way that we have Chad for D-bags and bold players. But yeah, for the purpose of addressing all the nice guys in this collection, screw all of you, Adams. drinking too much on the first date in order to stay over at my apartment and sleep on my couch, and then try to worm into my bed at 3 a.m. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below, and if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. I knew this kid in 9th grade who seemed like a nice enough dude. Let's call him Frank. We became friends over our mutual love of video games, with him seeming to be a lot more invested in the friendship, but like I said, he seemed harmless. One day, I invite him over to the house to play games on my PlayStation. We have a good enough time, him continuously talking about how he's so happy to have a friend who likes video games and is a girl. Red flag, I know. I got to school the next day, and during class, my friends tell me that Frank went and bragged to anyone that would hear that I invited him over and that he heard I was super easy and bought a condom. Just in case. Being an angry and petty teenager, I walk up to him during lunch period in front of a bunch of guys and called him out for what he said. He began stuttering, but before he could finish, I told him he was a creep and to never talk to me again. Cut to a few months later, and I'm called into the vice principal's office. I get there and she asked me if I was friends with Frank, and I responded that we used to be. She asked what ended our friendship, and I explained the situation to her. She looks at me and says, "That's not what he told us, but I think I know who's telling the truth." Turns out that after I ended the friendship, Frank fixated on another girl only to discover that she had a boyfriend. Frank decided the best course of action was to get rid of the boyfriend by pulling a knife on the kid in the hallway and threatening him. Security, of course, gets him and discovers that he only had a butter knife. Still, he threatened someone, so he was called into the principal's office. Whereupon, he explained that the only reason he pulled the knife on this guy was because he was so heartbroken after I dumped him following our 6-month anniversary, and fell in love with this other girl because she treated him right. He got suspended, but since it was close to the end of the school year, he just never came back and transferred schools the following school year. Good riddance. I considered him a friend. Stayed at his apartment when visiting his town. He slept in the living room, I in the bedroom. When it got late, he started making jokes about how he had hidden the bedroom key and that I should get ready for him. I spent the night half awake and fully dressed from sheer fear. In the morning, I packed and wanted to leave, but he wouldn't let me go without having a goodbye kiss. He physically blocked the door so I couldn't get out. I tried to play it off and somehow managed to squeeze by him without getting kissed, but it was a terrifying experience. And that was the end of our friendship. I've got a weird one. A good buddy of mine was moving across the country. I'd known him for a while and he was very gay. And I'm not, but we were still pretty close friends. He had his going-away party at a very gay bar here in Austin. No big, I'm comfortable with my heterosexuality. I'll go and have a few drinks and dance a little and go home with my girlfriend, who went to the party with me. Well, we get there and about 20 minutes in, she gets a text that her friend's sister has been in a bad car accident. She leaves to go help her friend. I decide I'll stay for another hour or so before heading home. I'm at the bar having a drink and I start to feel tired, so I'm going to go outside and call an Uber. As I'm outside, one guy from the party group, but who I didn't know at all, asked what was going on, and I told him I was leaving. He was like, "Dude, I live right by you, I'll drop you off." I didn't think about it at the time, but he would have no clue where I lived because we had barely been introduced at the party. I get in his car and as we turn the corner he puts his hand on my leg. I kinda snap out of it and say, "You know what, man? I'm uncomfortable here, why don't you let me out of the car?" I get the whole, "Nah bro, I'll get you home safe, it's fine. I won't stop." Doesn't pull over, comes up to a stoplight, I try to force open the door and the door won't open. He won't look at me and by this point I'm saying very forcibly to let me go. I normally conceal carry, but not this night since I was in a bar, and I was drinking. Both illegal to carry a gun while doing so. After a few more lights and silence where I realize that he's taking me somewhere against my will, I realize that I have a window breaker on my keychain. It's one of those combo thingies that can cut a seatbelt and break a window if your car is underwater. So I pull it and immediately break the passenger side window at the next light and start crawling out. Luckily there were like 8 people that saw it happen and came running over. He still wouldn't unlock the door. When he saw them running over to help, he opened the door and pushed me out and sped off. He was in a stolen car and no one knew him at the party. He had just started associating with our group early on and I thought he was part of the party. It was scary as heck. I worked for a few years at a children's museum. There was this single dad with 3 daughters who was cute but way too old for me, especially at the time when I was 19 and he was about 35. I also got a weird vibe from him, but he was always very nice, if a little uncomfortable. His daughters were adorable. The following events happened over a 6-month period. One day, some guest approaches me and asks if I've seen this missed connections on Craigslist about the museum. It was about me. The guy was writing about things we'd talked about and was saying how good we would be together, etc. Thinking back, I honestly think that she must have been friends with the guy, because it was too weird that she approached me out of all the other workers and then asked me what I thought about the guy who wrote the ad. Later, he found me on Facebook and tried to add me. I didn't add him, and the next time he was in the museum, he followed me room to room and just glared at me from afar, not talking to me. Super uncomfortable. I thought it would be easier to just add him, so I did. Then he starts commenting really weird and creepy stuff on my photos, like a gif of Pikachu biting his lip or just fap 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 fap. So I decided enough is enough and deleted him. Then he tries to win me back or something. He brings a wrapped canvas to the museum and gives it to my boss, saying it would be too weird to just give it to me. And my boss calls me down later and makes me open it in front of everyone. It was a very fun workplace and we loved to rip on each other. And it was a painting of one of my photos on Facebook. I was so mortified I put it away, but one of my co-workers, and also my best friend, replaced the clock in the bathroom with my portrait because she's a dick. While it was funny, I also asked my boss to watch out for him, so from then on I didn't see him anymore and blocked him on Facebook. So I think I'm safe. My nice guy said he'd take his own life unless I became his girlfriend. Nice guy from college, we're talking about trench coat and fedora, fingerless gloves, pathetically sleazy smile, the whole shebang, in a tropical country at that, who kept trying to talk to me even as I was clearly trying to do my homework. Now, I was okay with multitasking, I could really do homework and listen and respond to him, but he wouldn't have it. Hey, you know what? I really hate it when women, yes, not people, women, specifically, ignore me. I was dumbfounded but also really offended, so I shot back that I was listening to him even if I wasn't looking at him. No, but when I'm talking to someone, I want them to look at me. Friend overhears this and went off on him faster than I did. He left me alone after that. Not as terrible as the other answers here, but that was my first real taste of it. As usual with the darker and more negative subjects that we post here sometimes, I find myself grasping for literally anything to be positive about. So well done to your friend for giving Creepo McFedora a piece of their mind. Stick by those friends. A co-worker gave me a ride to the train station because I'd missed my bus when I was a trainee. It's a 10 to 15 minute ride and I thought it was nice of him, but I didn't think much of it. I thought he was just helping out. When we were still in the car, he then mentioned wanting to invite me for a drink one day, then offered to drive me all the way back home. He was living near the train station we were heading to, and it would have made a 45-minute drive to get to my place. I declined because I felt uncomfortable, and because without traffic the train was actually more convenient for me. He mistaked my refusal for politeness or just outright ignored it and insisted, saying it wasn't bothering him to drive all the way here. At this point, I didn't care about him. I was just starting to get scared. He insisted, and I had to argue and practically begged him to just drop me at the train station, finally mentioning that my dad was waiting for me anyway at the terminus, and pretended we could have a drink someday, and he let it go. But it all happened as we were driving onto the highway, so I felt trapped and it was really uncomfortable. Thankfully, it was my last week here, and I avoided him the last few days that I worked. He let me sleep over because I lived an hour away and we'd been drinking, and he pulls the old, "You're really lucky I'm a nice guy. Most guys would force themselves on you right now, but I don't because I'm nice. You're really lucky," despite us having been normal platonic friends for a few months before this, and me having established a few times that I wasn't interested in anything else with him. I was on a Discord server and spoke in a voice chat frequently. One time this dude came in and didn't speak, only in text chat. He kept putting himself down for attention, so I told him that he shouldn't worry, blah blah blah, just to be polite and to try to get him to stop. This went on for quite a bit, and I think he might have taken that politeness as something more. I'd already told most people on the server that I don't swing that way, and he got all down about it and literally complained to everyone on the server that he had a crush on her, but she hates me. Fast forward an hour or so, and he PMs me saying that it's actually me he likes. I told him that I didn't like him back and that I was gay, but he threatened to take his own life, so I told him to stop being so manipulative and to pull himself together. I was at a bar and coffee shop drinking tea when this guy, a friend of a friend, came and sat down next to me with 2 shots of whiskey. I told him no thank you, I'm not drinking, and he said, "Wow, you're really making me angry. I'm being fricking nice to you and you're being really fricking rude." I said no thank you again. He kept going off about how rude I was and what a nice guy he was. Finally, I told him that I'd take the shot and throw it in his eyes if he didn't walk away. He walked away finally. Prick. Nice guy asks me out in high school on the bus and I declined. He gives me the silent treatment after that. The next day he appears in my friend group with his arms encasing one of my friends who looked clearly uncomfortable. He tells her he loves her and how great of a woman she is to be giving him a chance to treat her like a princess. I talked to her after, and he had asked her over and over to date him until she said yes. She was a very nice girl and I felt bad for her. I told her what happened and that seemed to give her the confidence to stop the dating after only a few hours. We never saw him much after that, thank goodness. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.